So here recently, I was talking to my brother, and he mentioned to me, he said, Chris, you don't do enough beginner-friendly content on your Linux channel. And I thought, you know what? He's right. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go over 5 commands that I think every Linux user should know. And these 5 commands are going to be beginner-friendly commands, right? The 5 commands that almost every experienced Linux user knows. But for some of you guys, maybe some of you guys have been running Linux for quite a while now, but you're not really... you're new to the terminal, right? Like you're nervous about using the terminal. Or maybe you're a brand new Linux user and you've never used a terminal before, ever. So these 5 commands, I think, will really help you and will really speed up your production. Now, first thing with these commands, what I want to say is the reason that power users use the terminal more than we probably use the GUI, like front ends, is because simply they're faster. They are so much faster. And for instance, if I pull up a terminal real fast, let me go on the right screen. If I pull up a terminal and if I wanted a CD into a directory, right, I can, it's super fast, right? Now I'm in a different directory. Well, if I was wanting to do this in a GUI front end, I would have to pull up a GUI, use my mouse, go to that directory, and that's how I would do it. But you can see, like, there's a lot of extra steps, right? So that's one of the reasons why I think power users, they really gravitate towards the command line versus like GUI applications. So let's go ahead and pull up a terminal here. And let me get in the let me get bash. All right. So the first command that I want to talk about today is the ls command. What is ls? Well, ls is list. So if we type in ls, we get a list of all the files and directories that is in my home folder, right? So we could do ls videos, and then this would list all the files inside my videos directory. So if I hit enter, you can see that list. But there are different flags too, right? So a lot of your commands here on Linux, they have what's called flags. What are flags? Well, if we do a man ls, right? And we can see these flags. So we can see the -a, and that's going to be list everything, list all, right? We can do capital A, which is almost all. We can list author, and there's a ton of flags that you can go through. Almost every single one of your GNU/Linux commands in the command line, they all have a man page. I do recommend that you read those if you want to figure out what are some of the flags that you can use for certain commands. Now, I will cover the basics here in this video, the ones that I personally use, and I'll cover what they do. But just know that if you guys are typing in commands and you're like, hey, how does this command interact with a certain flag? Or is there a certain flag with this command? Chances are you can do a man whatever program that you're trying to run, and that will give you a man page that you can go and you can read to see, you know, if that command does a certain thing, whatever that you need it to. Okay, so we're going to cover some of these ls flags here. Like I said, I'll show you the most common ones that I use. And then if we do an ls, you can see that if we do a regular ls, it doesn't list everything, right? It doesn't show my hidden files. But if I do an ls, and remember, -a for all, now watch what happens. Now you can see it lists a lot more files. And any file that you see with the dot before it, those are hidden directories or hidden files, right? That's the reason when we did a regular ls, we couldn't see those before. Another flag that we can do is ls -l. So this will also list the files, but now it's also going to show me the directories and the file permissions, right? So that's what this DWRXR means. It's just read and write permissions on specific files. And we can combine these flags as well. So we can do ls -l a for list all, but list everything and show me the file permissions. So if we do that, now you can see all the file permissions has my name. So I am the owner, Chris. You can see every file permission right there, and you can see all of the hidden files. Another common one, I'm trying to think here. Let's see if this is one. No. Man ls. Trying to think of another common ls flag that people use. Actually, that is a common one. So another one is ls -lh. What is LH? Well, L, remember, L prints the read and write permissions. What's H? Well, H, what it does is it tells you the size in a human readable format of each file. So for instance, we just did ls -lh in my home directory, right? And you can see this MP4 file is 168 megs. But if we just did an ls or lsl, you see right here, that same file, it doesn't have that human readable, that size, right? So a lot of us, well, me especially, I like to have that H in there. That way I can see how big the file or the directory is in a human like readable format. That way I can quickly see if it's, you know, is that file a gigabyte? Is it a megabyte? Is it 500 megs? Just whatever, right? And you can combine, like I said, you can combine all of these flags. So we can do ls -lah, which is going to list the permissions. A is going to list everything, and H is going to be human readable. So if we do that, now you can see all of the files in my home directory, and you can see the file sizes in a human readable format. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So now that we got the ls command kind of covered, so we can use ls on any directory that we want, right? Well, how do we go to a different directory? Well, that's going to be this next command. So the next command is the cd command, and if you guessed it, cd stands for change directory, right? So if we do an ls to print everything in our home folder, all right, and if we wanted to change into one of these directories, so everything in my terminal that you see that is purple or blue, depending on what your monitor kind of picks up. On my monitor is purple, but everything that you see that's purple is an actual directory, right? Everything that is white is a file. That's how I have my terminal set up. Okay, so if we do cd right? If we CD, and let's say we wanted to CD into our desktop folder right here, right? So we type in CD desktop, hit enter, and as you can see, we are in our desktop, right? And we do an ls, there's nothing in that folder. So what if we wanted to go back, right? We want to go back to the previous directory that we was in. Well, we could do CD, and then we could do ... right? Hit enter, and now we do an ls. Now we're back in our home folder, right? If we do a CD, and then we can go to our downloads. So it's CD downloads, hit enter, ls to print everything in there. You can see everything that's in my downloads folder, which is a whole lot of nothing. CD back, okay, ls, right? Now let's CD. We can CD into videos, right? ls. Let's also CD into, I don't know, we'll do Real Talk Fedora. This is one of my videos that I've done here on the channel. So now, let's say that we're 5 or 6 directories in, and it's like, I don't want to keep hitting ... every single time that I want to go back. What if we're 5 directories in or whatever, and we want to go back to our home folder immediately? Well, there's a shorthand for that, and we could do CD, and we could do the tilde. Yeah, I believe that's called a tilde. So CD tilde, right? And this will take us back to our home folder. So if we do an ls, we're in our home folder. We can also do a man CD, okay? And right there it says CD, change the working directory, or change directory for short, okay? There's not a whole lot of options with the CD command. Most people, when they use the CD command, they use it kind of 2 or 3 different ways. So you could do, let's say if we were using our documents, you could just type in CD. That would also take you back to your home directory. You could do CD ... That would take you to the directory before the directory that you're working in. Or you can do CD in the directory that you want to go to. You'll also see me here on the channel. Sometimes you'll see me doing stuff like CD, and then I'll do a /, and that's just because I'm just doing a direct path, right? That's just something that I've always kind of done. I've always done direct paths when typing out stuff. So you can do it either way you want. So you can do CD documents, right? That'll do it. Or you can do CD documents like that. Hit enter, and you'll go to the same directory. However you want to do it is up to you. But really, the CD command, most people use CD like this, or CD directory. I hope that makes sense. The next command that I want to go over is pwd. Now, what is pwd? Pwd stands for print working directory. What's that mean? Well, it prints the directory that you're in. So if I do a pwd, it says home Chris, right? Home Chris is the directory that I'm in. Okay, which is my home folder, right? So if I go to downloads, right? And if I do a pwd on downloads, you can see now it says home Chris downloads. I hope that makes sense. So we can go back, right? We can switch it to music if we wanted to, pwd, and now you can see that we're in music. You can also see the way I have my terminal set up, that the directory will also be right there. So that's another quick way, instead of typing pwd, that you can quickly see what directory that you're actually in. But let's say if you had 5 or 6 different music directories, right? And you could do pwd to figure out which one that you was actually in. We can do a man pwd, and I think there is an actual avoid all symlinks. So yes, you'll never use this, I don't think, but there's a pwd -p. So let me see if I can find a user source. Okay, so this is something that you'll probably you'll rarely ever use, if ever. Okay, so you can see right here when I did an ls -lah and the user source directory, right? We have a symbolic link that's from Linux, but really this Linux directory or file, what it really points to, lib modules 642 and then build, right? So that's what a kind of a symbolic link does. You can picture a symbolic link as like a like creating a shortcut in Windows, right? Like you create a desktop shortcut. That desktop shortcut, really what it does, it points to the actual file in C program files or whatever it is, right? That's kind of what a symbolic link is here on Linux. But let's say if I wanted to avoid all of those symbolic links, what I could do is pwd, and then I could hit capital P. I think that's how we would use that. See, I'm not sure actually how to... Oh, we would have to be in the Linux directory, I think. I'm going to figure this out. Yes. So this is how you would use it. So if we did, okay, so we're in a symbolic link, right? I just told you about symbolic link. So if we did a pwd, and you see that we're in user source Linux. Well, remember that that Linux, that's actually a symbolic link to somewhere else. But what if we wanted to figure out exactly where it pointed to? Well, we could do pwd -P, and now look, now it's going to point to where that symbolic link actually is. I hope that makes sense. Like I said, that's one of the you'll use pwd a lot, but you'll rarely ever use the pwd -P. That's just a very niche kind of case for it. So the next command I want to talk about is make dir. What is make dir? Well, make dir is make directory, right? And you will use this command probably quite a lot here on Linux, because you're constantly having to, either make files or make directories or anything like that. So there's a lot of uses for this command, and I probably use this command not daily, but I would say I use it at least once a week. And the way that this command works is so if we do an ls to print everything, so let's do mkdir, right? And now let's give a I don't know, we can name it test. So if we do mkdir test, this will make a directory in our home folder called test, right? So we do that. Now we type in ls to list everything. And now we can see we have test on the right hand side right here, right? And that's the directory that we just made. Now, with cd command, we can go into that directory. So we can do cd test, hit enter, do an ls. Okay, we're in that test directory, but if we wanted to really make sure that we're in that test directory, we could do pwd, and now you can see home Chris test. That was the directory that we just made. Now let's go back. And let's say well, let's look at the man page real fast, because there is another flag with the mkdir that you may occasionally use. So that flag would be this parent flag right here with the -p. So with the -p, what that will do is it will allow you to create multiple directories at once, but they're kind of, it's like a parent and a child relationship, right? So so if I do mkdir and I do -p and I do test/blah, what this will do is it's going to create a test directory. That's the one that we'll see in our home folder. But then inside of that test directory, it's going to create another directory called blah, right? So we hit enter, we do an ls, you can see we have that test, right? So we change directory inside that test, we do an ls, and now you can see that we have blah, right? And we can change directory inside blah if we wanted to. Go back, okay, go back. And that's really useful if, like, if you know that, I use this, so kind of how I use this, that command is, like, if I wanted to do, let's say if I wanted to do make directory, do I have we'll call it code, right? So I'll make directory code, and then I'll do, let's say C++, right? And this is kind of how I use the make directory -p. Now, I use make directory all the time, but how I use the -p flag with it is if I know the directory name, that I'm going to, like, nest the directories, right? So if I do it right there, you can see I have code. Now I have C++. If I wanted to make another directory called Python, I could. If I wanted to make another directory called Rust, I could. You know, the list goes on and on. I hope you guys get the point. But that's kind of how I would use the that nesting feature for make directory. The next command that I want to go over, and probably the final command here, is actually going to be two. But how do we remove a directory? How do we remove something, right? Well, we can remove a directory with the rm command. Okay? Now, Linux is kind of weird. So if we make it, let's make an empty, let's call this empty, right? And I'm going to clear. So we have a directory in here called empty. Okay, so we have a directory called empty, right? So Linux is kind of weird in the fact that you can remove an empty directory with just one command without any use flags if the directory is empty. However, if the directory has stuff in it, then we actually have to pass in a couple flags to it. So if we want to remove that empty directory, we could do rmdir, give it the name of the directory that we was wanting to remove, hit enter. Now you can see that directory is now gone, right? But let's try to do that on that test folder. So if we do rmdir test, nope, can't do it, because now it's saying it failed to remove it because the directory is not empty. Okay. Well, we can do some stuff to actually remove that. So we can do rm, and the most popular and probably the most useful command with this rm command is the rf flag. Okay. Now with the rf flag, I think r means we'll look at the man page in a minute. So if we do rm -rf test, no complaints, we remove that test, right? So if we do man rm, so the RF, what R stands for is recursive. What that means is remove everything in that directory and remove that directory and remove everything in that directory, right? That's what recursive means. And then F means force, right? So we're forcing this to remove it. I'm pretty sure we don't even need to force it. I'm not 100%. I think we could just do rm minus R. We'll try it on this code directory. Yeah, we didn't even need to force it. Most people just had to put the F in there anyway, and to make sure. Now, the final command that I kind of want to go over is how do we copy something? How do we move something from one location to the next location, right? So, and there's a couple of different ways so we can do this. So let's make a directory and we'll call it test1. Make another directory, call it test2. Okay. And now let's say I wanted to copy this colors to, let's copy this colors, right? Copy this colors to test1. Right? So what we're doing here is we're saying, hey, use the cp command, which is copy, right? Copy colors and copy it to test1. Better way of writing this would probably be like this, so people don't get confused. Okay, either way, you can write it however any way you want. We hit enter, and now if we ls that test1, we can see we have the colors, that color script or whatever it is, that file I have in there, right? So what if, so that's copying files, right? Copying like regular like documents or you know, just single stuff. But what if we wanted to copy, directories? How do we do that? Well, we could copy directories by cp, again, for copy, right? Minus R. Remember, R stands for recursive. So what we're doing is we're copying one file or one directory, and then we're copying all of the contents of that directory, and we're going to put it somewhere else. So we could copy minus R. We could do test1, right? And now we could copy it, we could put it in test2. Okay, now let's look at test2. And we should have test1 in there. We do, right? And we go inside test1. Now we have that colors file that we had in there previously. Now Linux also has this very cool thing that it can do, and it can copy multiple stuff from the file extensions. What is file extensions? Well, you can see this .mp4. That .mp4, that's a file extension, right? You've probably seen images where it has either a .png or a PNG or a .jpg. Those are file extensions, right? And Linux has this cool thing where you can copy everything with a specific file extension to wherever you want, right? So let's demonstrate this. So if I do, I'm gonna make directory, and I'm gonna call this test. I'm gonna call this new test, right? So new test, right? And now if we do an ls on that new test, you can see we don't have anything in there. Now let's go into our pictures here, okay? And I have some .png files, right? What if I wanted to copy every .png file over to that new test directory that we just made? How would I do that, right? Well, one way we could do it is we could copy 10 right here, and we could go through all of it manually one by one and we could copy it over. We can certainly do that. So a better way to do that would be to do CP and then use the time symbol, right? Or the star. And then whatever file extension that you want to copy. So what this is saying is CP, which is copy everything in this directory that has that .png file extension. And where do we want to copy it? Well, we want to copy it to our new test, right? Because that's the directory that we just made. So what we're going to do is say, we're going to copy it to the home, right? Because that's what the tilde sign says. Tilde is home. And now if we do new, we can do new test right here, right? And if you want to know how I'm quickly doing that, all I'm doing is hitting a key and then I hit tab and it'll autofill for you. The tab key is very, it's very good. It will save you a lot of typing. A lot of times what you can do is if you just type in a few words, hit tab, it'll autofill for you. So that's how I did that. So what this is saying though, this is saying copy all the .png files, copy those to our new directory called new test, right? Hit enter. Okay. And now if we go back, so let's go back to home, right? And let's go to new test and we do an ls. You can see we have all of the .png files sitting in there that we had in our pictures directory. Okay, so I hope some of this has helped you guys. I know I kind of went through a lot of this rather fast, but really it's not that complicated. You have to get used to it. You have to play around with it, okay? And you need to get in the terminal and enter in commands. You're not always going to get it right. There's a lot of times when I'm typing or if I'm doing something here in the terminal and I think I entered in the command and I'm just like, hey, how come this ain't working? A lot of times it's just because I misspelled something, right? I forgot to hit tab. I didn't autocomplete. Just whatever, right? I messed up. And that's going to happen. But the more that you get used to the terminal, get used to navigating in the terminal, the faster it is. Like you start to really, you get faster, right? You no longer have to pull up the GUI file manager and to make copy and cut and to do all this silly stuff. Now, what I will say is the file manager and your GUI applications, they do still have a place, okay? And one of the biggest things that, like for myself, if I have to make a lot of cuts, the only thing, I don't think that you can actually cut a file using a command. I know you can copy, of course, but I don't think you can actually cut. So if I have to, cut a lot of stuff, then a lot of times, and if it's different file extensions, a lot of times, yes, it's going to be faster using a file manager, okay? But for anything, really anything else, you can just pull up a terminal and you can enter in a command and knock it out and do it, and everything's good. So I hope you found some value in this video. Give me a like and a sub if you guys do. And until next time, I want you guys to take care, be safe, and peace. Bye, guys. Thanks for watching.